Hello, and welcome to Dolphin's Dive, the weekly strategically minded Handelabra stream hosted by Logic Dolphin. Handelabra believes in civil rights for everyone and in being as inclusive as possible, so any comments or activity actively work against those goals are not welcome and will not be tolerated. You can follow us at Handelabra Games on Twitch or Handelabra on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. You can follow me personally at Logic Dolphin on Twitch, Discord, YouTube, or pretty much any avenue. Sentinels of the Multiverse, Sentinels of Earth Prime, Bottom of the Ninth, One Deck Dungeon, One Deck Galaxy, Aeon's End, and Spare Island are all available on Steam, iOS, and Android devices, with the exceptions of One Deck Dungeon, which is also available on Switch, and One Deck Galaxy, which is in early access on Steam. You can find more information on those games at handelabra.com. All right, let's get to it. We are continuing our One Deck Galaxy campaign that we've had going on for the past while. We have done 4 of the 6 games, so we have 2 more to do. And it looks like we're going to be playing a lot of Felici today, because those are the last 2 check marks for the homeworld. Societies, we have Botanists and Explorers still, and the Nemesis, we have the Hungry Nebula and the Nebelwoobers. Okay. Shouldn't be terribly hard, right? Hitting random is going to be a bit tricky, because how do we hit random until we get all of the check marks? Well, I'm going to do this a few times until I hopefully see all of this, but that's probably not going to pan out too well. This is close enough, is because if I just hit Felici, then that does it. So Felici starts with 5 energy, 2 materials, 3 diplomacy, and crystals. Base milestone is to have 12 fleets. Base tech is noble efficiency. Resolve up to 2 location rows, then discard any dice and discs used, which will allow you to claim locations faster. We have the Botanist's Society, where all of their milestones are based on dice. Have 7 energy dice in your pool, or 5 energy dice with 0 in a supply, or have 7 material dice in your pool, or 5 material dice with 0 in a supply, or 7 diplomacy dice in your pool, or 5 diplomacy dice with 0 in a supply. And the tech here is cubic farming, which allows us to store a die from your pool here increased by 1. At Federation level 2, store up to 2 dice from your pool here increased by 1, and at Federation level 3, store up to 3 dice from your pool here increased by 1. Dice that are stored here are not removed during cleanup, and you gain them to your pool after you gather dice, which allows you to potentially set up powerful turns, making sure that you're guaranteed to have big numbers on the subsequent turn. That does require you to sacrifice your current big number for the turn, but typically 1 big turn is better than 2 mediocre turns, I feel. So setting up for a big turn is certainly good. Fighting the Hungry Nebula. So the Hungry Nebula gives us swells. Each of the Hungry Nebula's adversary events has a swell effect. Instead of being placed under the deck during setup, they are shown below the adversary. At the end of the results phase, the Hungry Nebula swells X times. For each swell, players must choose 1 swell effect. Each chosen effect must be able to be fully executed. Effects cannot be repeated during a turn. If no effect can be chosen, discard 3 cards from the deck instead for each such swell. So the swells are to either exile 2 dice from the supply, spend 2 influence from locations in play, spend 2 fleets, spend a science card from the starbase, or exile a tech disc or a starbase disc. And yeah, so their escalation, the adversary gains 2 influence, which is meaningful because if they have 4+ influence, they swell an additional time. At the end of the results phase, swell X times. If there are 4 more influence on the adversary, swell an additional time, then discard 4 influence from here. X is the lowest number that's revealed on the adversary card. Starts at 3, goes down to 2 after the first confrontation, then to 1 after the third confrontation, then you win. And in the Discover phase, if there are 4 cards in the Discovery Zone at the start of the phase, the adversary gains influence, so you gotta make sure you end each turn with 1 card removed from the Discovery Zone at least. Extra defeat condition: when the deck is reshuffled, instead of revealed in an adversary event, exile 1 of the swell effect cards below the adversary. If none are present, you are overwhelmed. After executing the swells for the turn, you are overwhelmed with the number of exiled adversary events is at least as high as your Federation level. So you got to make sure you level up your Federation consistently throughout the game, because after the first reshuffle, you will start getting overwhelmed. Even if you confront the adversary, you're going to be spending adversary discs to not lose. But that's worse than just leveling up your Federation level, which you need to do to win the game anyway. All right, let's play. 2 advancements remaining. We can't claim all of these. I think setting 2 dice to any values was one thing that we wanted to shoot for. I think we want to finish on water resources. It's basically the next game that we're going to get that effect. I don't really envision anything else as being that meaningful, so we're just going to add on that. So the way that campaign mode works, because of our progress in the campaign, we've gained all of these things on the first turn. We have 3 extra materials, which is pretty cool. 1 extra energy die, only on the first turn. We also start the game with an additional 2 fleets. We also have a starting fruit resource or plant resource, and also an ultra tech die, which is good. And we also have these one-time use techs, not really techs, but they're one-time use things. One is to add 2 influence to a location. We can do that at any point in the game, but only once. And the other that we just unlocked is to set 2 dice to any values. So at any point in the game, we can do this. We can only do it once per game, but we can use this to perhaps confront the adversary immediately, or to guarantee that we don't get overwhelmed or whatever. Unfortunately, these extra dice aren't actually going to help us with milestones. Like for the 7 dice, we are starting with 2 materials. So having 3 extra puts us at 5, which is not 7. And 1 extra energy, well, we start with 5. I guess we actually could get that milestone immediately if I go this way. Having the 2 extra energy dice gives me 7 at the start of the game, which immediately gives me a level up. I guess that is an option. I'm not really that worried about this homeworld, or society. This society is one of the easier ones in my opinion, because with cubic farming, you are more equipped to set up for it if you play it smartly. And against adversaries that exile dice, you can actually intentionally exile dice in such a way that you can get to 5 in your pool with 0 in a supply quite easily. So I'm not terribly worried about that. I do want to shoot for like those extra resources though. So all right, let's play. Start with a 2 science card, not very good. We also need to have lots of energy and materials for this side of the adversary. So these extra energy and materials that we're starting with will allow us to maybe confront if we're lucky. Which we did not get the energy 6, unfortunately. So we would have to either use our campaign ability or fleets to get there. If we choose to go for that. So on the flip side, we would just need diplomacy and materials, but also science, which is dice, basically. Not sure yet how I want to confront, or how I want to not confront, but I guess it is confront. Maybe I can't decide how I want to confront. Let's see. So we have to do 3 of these swells. Exiling a tech disc in the early game is usually fine, as you usually have way too many in the supply anyway. Spending fleets is 2 dice. Spending a science card from the starbase is usually at least 2 dice. Exiling dice from the supply is permanent. Spending influence from locations sometimes is 2 dice, but sometimes more. And what we have here are a lot of 2 science cards. Well, that's rude. Because that means that the influence on them is really expensive. It doesn't take a lot of influence, but it takes a lot of dice to gain that influence. The counter side is that you don't spend as many influence, which means you're not spending as many cards from the deck in order to gain these locations. But in terms of gaining influence for the adversary, I'm generally spending at least 2 dice per influence. So 4 dice on a swell effect is rather expensive. What we could consider, we do have our noble efficiency. We could potentially try to gain one of these locations, like immediately. Like if I gain Flutara for rapid deployment, the 2 fleets I gain every turn can be used to spend for the swell, so that makes it easier to deal with the swells. Hematib, we don't have the science, so I can't actually gain that no matter what. Twenso. My energy roll was really bad, so I can't even gain this with just the energy dice. I'd have to use the Ultra Tech dice, but resolving that row won't do me any good if I can't do it a second time, let alone the first time. And then Gurn, I don't have the Diplomacy 5. Apparently all my rolls were bad except for energy, or materials. But we could get the materials 8 twice. The 5-2 is going to need a fleet. Or to use this thing. So yeah, my rolls were pretty bad for all of that. It's also bad for energy nets. The thing is though that like I'm never gonna have a lot of materials past this turn if I'm starting with 3 extra and I'm at 5 right now, so it might be worth trying to go for the confrontation right now. Confronting once will lower the swell count by 1, which will mean that I have to spend less actions countering the adversary, which will allow me to accelerate myself faster. So let's see. So where am I at on at least the material side of things? We have enough for that. If I use my Ultra Tech, I would need to spend 2 fleets on this, or I could use setting 2 dice to any values. Could also add 2 influence location to try to gain it faster. I guess that's another thing I forgot to consider. Would allow me to gain any one of these pretty much. Hematib would require me to get materials over. That material die though is pretty nice. This material 6 would also be pretty nice. We will need another material 6 for another confrontation down the road. We'll also need lots of materials and high value ones over there anyway. So what is the best course of action here? Well, in terms of the swell effects, we can definitely spend a 2 science card from the starbase. That's not really any worse than other options. Exiling a tech disc is fine in the early game. We could choose to exile 2 dice from the supply if we can manipulate that to better get the botanist things going. For instance, if I exile 2 energy dice and I store 1 of them with cubic farming, we'll immediately get the energy threshold. But if I store energy dice, it's going to be harder to do the energy over here. You could always choose to go for the science route, which will require a lot of cards, but it is possible. The advantage of this is that it's less dependent on our rolls beyond us needing 2 6s. But with cubic farming, we can basically guarantee that we always have the 6s when we need them. I feel like I almost always go on the dice side and not on the science side. But you can pretty much do whatever. See, if I confront, I only have to do 2 of these. So if I do these 2, yeah, so I have to confront and I have to remove a card from the discovery zone so that the adversary doesn't gain another influence. So what's the best way to do that? Probably just using the campaign ability for the 2 influence and then pick whichever one would make that work. Guessing I'm also using the other campaign ability to help out with this, because I can turn this 1 into a 6, and then if I turn this 2 into a 6, then I could take 5 out from here, although I don't really have 5, but I would get this freed up. But if I want to go for like Twenso, for instance, I don't really want to go for Twenso. I think I would rather just take Hematib. If I go for Hematib, then I would use those dice and turn these into 6s. So let's try that. So turn that into a 6, turn that into a 6. And... oh. No, that was... Okay, I was looking at the wrong one. I want that there. Alright, so we're confronting, and... we're going to gain Hematib. So that takes care of that side of things. So if I do want to go the science route, I will need to get Starbase to class 2 at the very least, and in general, class 2 is pretty good. These remaining dice aren't going to really gain any influence anywhere else. But we do... Oh, I spent all my tech discs, so I can't use cubic farming this turn. Okay. But we're using our jumpstart stuff to do that, so that's fine. Or, this is technically not jumpstart, but whatever. Our campaign boost. Okay, so I have 7 dice. A probe is 3 dice. That leaves me 4 left over. I could gain these 2 science cards and basically just use them for this swell for the rest of the game. Well, not the rest, for the next 2 turns, basically. Like Flutara might be a fine one to gain. Mining platform might be a fine one to gain. We are getting a tech disc off of Hematib, so we could gain a tech and still be able to use all 3 of mine if I so wanted. Twinso, I don't think I care about too much, so I might gain take Twinso. But Flutara and Gurn are okay. Rapid deployment allows me to pay for a swell without having to really spend anything on it. And a mining platform gives me material 6s, which we need on this side anyway, so yeah, I want to gain that too. So I think I'm just gonna do fleets then. So we'll gain 2 fleets, do a probe, and study Twinso. And then we'll take Hematib for the dice and the tech disc. We'll do the probe. It's a 3, and we'll study Twinso. We've confronted, so we only have to do 2 swells. Let's exile a tech disc and a science card, and we're going to select a 2-1. And that's that turn. We no longer have our jump start, nor do we have our campaign abilities, but early confrontation should help tremendously. So in order to confront again, we do need to do a level up. And I guess we can get 12 fleets. I probably could have thought about the fleets more than the science, but that's okay. 12 fleets is pretty easy to get. Literally just, well, I would have to spend 7 dice for it this turn, but we can slowly build up for it. So yeah, we can't confront. We have SS Sunlight and we have Soulwort that was added on. SS Sunlight will give us another material and another diplomacy, which is certainly helpful for the flip side where I need lots of, not lots of, but consistent 6s would be nice. Now, we did say that Gurn does give us a consistent material 6 though. But with our noble efficiency, we can spend the 4 fleets once and then do the 2-2 twice. And gain 5 influence that way without having to spend 4 fleets like repeatedly, which is what's really terrible about a card like SS Sunlight, is that 4 fleet upfront cost. Soulwort gives us Lattice Factory. We do have crystals, so this would give us a number of materials rolls, but if we are going on research teams, we like Gurn is fine for that. We don't really need materials beyond just what we need to get the 6 and maybe arguably the milestones. Soulwort does give us an energy die, which that energy die plus cubic farming will allow us to hit the energy milestone. And once we get this leveled up to 2 dice, then it's easier to get the next milestone. And then once that's at 3 dice, it's easier to get the next milestone. So it's... the milestone game will be a lot easier once we get that started. So yeah. Where does that put us? All dice here must have different values. That is actually rather terrible. For instance, I can't do 5-5 on this. I do want to eventually gain Gurn though. So maybe I put the materials in since I can do that side. Same is true of Flutara, interestingly. Flutara we could gain 2 influence on. I guess this fleet's tech also helps with getting us the 12 fleets faster, in a sense. And then helps us getting the fleets for SS Sunlight. And then there's Solwart, which... top one gets harder, bottom one gets easier the more influence there is. I can gain 1 influence by doing this, which 1 die for 1 influence is generally fine. IMO. Yeah, so I think I want to pass on Gurn for a sec. Because I could do something like this to get the 2 influence on it. It is costing a lot of dice. And we need to take one of the other cards. I guess it's going to be SS Sunlight, even though those dice would have been nice, I guess. We don't really need the dice themselves, as we said. So if I study SS Sunlight, I'm left with 2 dice. So 2 fleets to pay for the swell. Or I guess we still have a science card, so we can do the science card since we want the fleets for the second. And then we can exile another tech disc. We could cubic farming instead of gaining fleets. It's only 1 die. That would be wasting a die otherwise, I guess. So maybe I'm not cubic farming because, yeah, because I can't, if I like put this die into cubic farming, then this die is now lost because I can't do anything with it. Could also consider doing noble efficiency to try to like gain Flutara faster, although our dice aren't really lined up for that. So I think it's fine. I think this is fine. So study and then leave those, and we're not going to upgrade as we're going to spend the science card. Spend the 2. We still have a 4 and a 3 left over. And then exile a tech disc. And we're doing fine. Now Rice Twin, where instead of all dice having different values, all dice must have the same value. Okay. So can we do Flutara? No. As I have 6, 4, 3. Yeah, so those are 3 different values and not 4. I guess we could use noble efficiency to gain one of them twice. So I could do it that way, and that would work. Okay. So I could do it that way. Rice Twin. I mean, I could spend the 6s here to gain 2 influence on them. I don't know if I care about Rice Twin. We will have 3 crystals for each. We can return up to 3 dice to roll energies. It's not really a tech I care too much about, but it would get us this milestone really easily. So that's a thought. I think gaining Flutara is a pretty good idea. So like one way to do that would be to gain that side, resolve that row, and then do this side. I guess this would also work for the other side. guess I would rather do it this way if I'm doing it that way then. Like, technically I could do it that way. Just keep the 6 around for a sec, but doesn't really make a difference. Any other influence that I want to double up on? I do need to leave this around. So I can't do Rice Twin. We don't need to study it right away if we're going to claim Plutara, so that's fine. We don't have the extra swell this turn. Bear that in mind. We don't have a 2 science card, and we're not gaining these as science, so we are going to have to spend fleets this turn on the adversary. Could gain some influence on Gurn, I suppose. Can't really double up on that anyway. Gain an influence on Solwart. Okay. So, like, in terms of the remaining dice, we have these. Which, I guess I would be doing cubic farming for one of those. Probably the 6. I'm not gaining fleets this turn, I guess. I would do a probe. If it's a 2, then I don't have to spend fleets. Okay. So I'm just going to resolve this row. And then store this die. Okay. We're going to take rapid deployment for the fleets. Do the probe. We get a 4. So we can upgrade. Since we're not spending science this turn, might as well. We're going to spend 2 fleets and then exile another tech disc. Well, I probably am only going to do it 1 more time at most, but we do have the extra swell this turn. We have 7 in the pool because we've exiled 3 of them, and 2 of them are permanently spent on these campaign abilities. But that's okay. Hexfinity gives us a lot of dice, and Inversion Storage gives us very consistent dice, which is nice. And we have a lot of 6s. We could gain a lot of influence on Hexfinity this turn. Only the top row once. But the bottom row we could do twice. I'd have to spend a fleet for that. That puts 6 influence on Hexfinity, which is significant. We would still like to clear out a row, or clear out a card to avoid gaining extra influence in the adversary. And again, we have to do another swell. Keep an eye on our deck. It's at 13 cards right now, by the way. When they do the reshuffle, we have to have had a Federation level up at that point. Well, there's no reason not to use this. We have 3 tech discs, so might as well gain the 2 fleets, because we do need the fleets anyway. I could gain Gurn if I use Noble Efficiency. I'd have to use very heavy material numbers, and then I have to wait for the refresh to be able to use this. It's also very heavy on the diplomacy numbers, but my diplomacy is not really going anywhere else other than maybe Hexfinity. We gained some influence on Solwart, so it would be nice to continue that. We could gain 12 influence, or sorry, 2 influence that way. Which is nice, is that will put that down to 10 on the next round, and we'll probably be able to gain it next round as well. Probably would rather go for the dice. I mean, extra materials is also a thought, but that energy die will get us the first milestone, which is helpful. But Inversion Storage is also really nice. Because we're going to get the Federation levels pretty quickly, and then this is going to give us consistent numbers, which is very good for when we want to confront and have those consistent numbers. So I think I do want to rush Hexfinity then. Actually, I can't do this twice because I only have 2 Starbase discs. Which is fine because now I don't have to spend extra fleets. So let's go ahead and do those. So we're gaining influence there. I can't gain influence on Gurn. So I'm not gaining any of these 3, so I want to take Rice Twin. So I want to study it. And we still need to gain fleets. So studying is 3 dice, cubic farming is 1 extra dice, so I have 4 dice left over. I guess that's just gonna be 4 fleets then. So which die am I gonna be cubic farming? Probably the materials, so I can hit this next turn. And then gain the fleets and study Rice Twin. Okay, so we have to do 3 swells. So I think this is the last tech disc we're spending. We're gonna spend 2 fleets. I could spend 1 influence from Hexfinity, because if I'm gonna gain it, there's gonna be an excess of influence there anyway. If I take 1 from Soulwort, we're not really losing a card. If I spend 1 from Gurn, I lose a card that way. But at the same time, we were planning on gaining Soulwort next turn, probably. So I think we spend influence, definitely from there, and probably just from there after all. We're very close to a reshuffle, by the way, so we have to be mindful of that. But I need the fleets for the Federation level anyway, so we can't really waste them just yet. So it is what it is. Fleets. Yeah, so we might trigger a reshuffle by gaining influence, but it is what it is. We can gain Soulwort at least. If I make sure that I gain Soulwort and not really gain too many other things, we should put cards back into the discard before the reshuffle. So we have 2 Gurns now. This Gurn is a little less good because I wanted that diplomacy or material 6. But we can spend a science die or spend a science and fleet this up. Spend fleets and then get that. So that puts us at 7 influence. It will take 2 cards out from the deck. This will also take a card out from the deck. So I don't want to gain any influence on these 2 at all. We're gaining Soulwort, so if I store an energy die, we will get a Federation level that way. So let's store this one. We're gaining Soulwort, so I don't need to study. If I gain 5 fleets, we will have 12. I might still study Gurn and use that to spend for a swell. So yeah, let's gain 5 fleets and study Gurn. Now these fleets will cause a reshuffle, but the reshuffle will happen after I've gained Soulwort, so these cards will go back in the discard at the very least. But otherwise, all of my fleets are needed for the Federation level anyway. So it should be good. So we wanted the dice. We're now getting rid of a swell. I think we're done with exiling tech discs. I'm never going to exile a Starbase disc. I refuse. The Hungry Nebula now has 1 exiled event card and your Federation level is 1. An overwhelm will occur at the end of this turn if your Federation level is not raised. Federation level is raised. Success. And we're going to study Gurn, and then we're going to spend Gurn. And now we don't need the fleets as much, so we'll spend 2 fleets. So 1 exiled adversary event, Federation level 2, so we are safe. We have Twento and SS Sunlight. And we hit that milestone as well. So now my cubic farming is really strong as I'm storing 3 dice. Which means we can get the Federation level for diplomacy if I store 3 diplomacy dice. We can also get Hexfinity this turn, which is really nice. In fact, well, we're taking inversion storage. But that will give me another diplomacy dice. I only need to store 2 dice then. Unless I want that level up to happen before I take inversion storage so that it becomes all 5s instead of 4s, but... Let's see, we can confront, but only on this side. Because we need science now. So I guess we gotta study, we gotta work on the science now. We don't really need to level up the starbase anymore. We just needed the 2 starbase discs. Leveling up the starbase would really only serve to allow us to probe for cheaper. Yeah, probe it 2, but we still only do it 2 times. Studying is the same. Is there a way for me to look at the next starbase level? I thought there used to be a way to do that. It's fine. I know that Starbase Class 4, you can probe 3 times at 2, and studying is now discounted by an additional 1. But you'd have to spend 10 science to get to the next class, and then an additional 12 science to get to that class, which is 22 science that could have been used to deal with the adversary. Because if you think about it, we need a total of 27, 34, 41 science at the minimum. So spending an additional 22 is like 50% more than what we need. So I'm going to not worry about leveling up anymore. With inversion storage, I probably don't need mining platforms, so I can just study Gurn. We have fleets for days. I might not use this tech because it will cause that deck to thin out. So I'll just spend fleets for the rest of the game to get down to 0, really. And spending a science card from the starbase is probably still fine if it's like Gurn or Twinso. So let's... Yeah, I don't think this really matters since I'm not really using the dice for anything else. So let's just take those 3. Put those dice in there. And then with those 10 dice, studying will cost 8 dice. I could probe twice for 6 dice and then study those 2 and spend those cards on that. Yeah, okay. Let's take inversion storage. Study, study, probe, probe. And we're not gonna upgrade. Spend the fleets, spend a science card. It doesn't really matter. The Unseen. And that level up was done. Okay. This is an encounter. We cannot study it or ignore it. I mean, we could ignore it. Escalating puts 2 influence on the adversary, which just means that we'll have to swell a little more often. So we could just choose to ignore it. Artisanal Ultra Tech does give us an Ultra Tech 6, which isn't terrible. And yeah, I can get this level up if I store the like 3 materials dice. I don't need to, but it does make inversion storage stronger, I guess. So maybe I should do it. If I ignore Unseen, actually, they will escalate, but I will gain this card as Science. That is something to consider. But anyway. Do we have enough numbers for this side? No. So we're just going to... Well, let's go ahead and get that level up, because why not? Store these 3 dice. And then we have 16 dice left over, 10 of them for studying, 6 for probing. That's fine. A lot of science. We're not going to upgrade. Spend the fleets. Spend a science card. A 2. So they will do an extra swell this turn. We have another Unseen. So inversion storage, and then I get that level up. So now inversion storage will always give me 6s. And I can store for cubic farming if I'm planning on doing something with those. We do have a lot of materials this turn, so I could try to confront this way. I will need to spend a fleet to get this up, but that's fine. So that saves us 9 science. And then we need 18... and 14 is 32, so I need 9 more science at the minimum. We are swelling an additional time this turn, though, so I will have to do 3 of these things. We don't have any influence on locations right now, so I guess we're going to exile 2 dice from the supply. And that is what it is. So in terms of what we can do, it's study those 2 and do a probe. That will always put us over 32 at least. Yeah, I guess that's fine. I don't think we need to do cubic farming this turn since we got all the milestones. I don't really see a reason why we need a horde of dice. We already get the 6s off of inversion storage. Fleets, but we're close to a reshuffle, so kind of want to avoid that. So let's just do that. Study, probe, don't upgrade, spend fleets, spend science card, the 2, and exile the ultra text because we're not really using them. Okay, this is going to cause a reshuffle because of that influence, which means we're going to get rid of one of these. We're not really spending influence from locations, so we're getting rid of that one, I guess. The Unseen is going to escalate next turn, which means there will be an extra swell next turn, but we can probably win before that, because, yeah, we just have to confront 2 more times. So easy peasy. As long as I have good numbers of science, which... what have we selected? Those 2, that's fine. And then... Oh, those 2. I was like, which ones are you looking at? Okay. So we're at 17 and we need to spend 2 9s. 432 is 9, so any other science card will do it, as long as I don't spend a science card unnecessarily or something. So let's gain fleets. I need to use that for the swell anyway. Actually, we're confronting, so I only need to do 1 swell, and that's fine. So that, and then really we've won, so... don't really need to do anything else then, other than gain at least 1 science, I guess. So... Study, 4 dice, probe is that, so I gain a fleet, I guess. I can't upgrade as I need 18, so... Escalation happens. But it doesn't matter because we'll have one. Okay, literally don't have to do anything else. I can upgrade. I did it! Alright. The Hungry Nebula has been contained and is no longer a threat to your Federation. That puts us at 68 points. One short. Alright, let's continue the campaign. And I don't need to hit random as there's only one last thing to do. Felici Explorers and Nebelwoobers. So we just played with Felici, so we know how that works. The Explorers, the Society. First milestone have 5 of 1 resource. Second milestone have 4 each of 2 resources. Third milestone have 3 each of 3 resources. However, we can count resource icons in the Discovery Zone as if they were attached to your homeworld. Which means that we'll hit these milestones by playing around with the Discovery Zone. Probe Armada at base, return up to 2 dice, gain that many Ultratech 3s. At Federation level 3, return up to 3 dice, gain that many Ultratech 4s. At Federation level 5, return up to 4 dice, gain that many Ultratech 6s. So if you do get to Federation level 5, you get a bunch of Ultratech 6s. Usually that's enough to win the game. But we are fighting the Nebelwoobers, which means that they're going to steal some dice. So they escalate. The Nebelwoobers gain dice and tech discs for their icons and roll them. Gather Ultratech dice in place of missing dice. Each die that is value X or higher and all gathered tech discs are added to the Horde. They start with 1 energy, 1 material, and 1 diplomacy that they roll every turn. And on the first turn, they need to roll 3 or higher in order to steal the dice. Yeah. So their escalate is to roll dice. And at the end of the adversary phase, if the adversary has 3 influence, discard 3 influence, and the Nebelwoobers gain a colony from the deck, otherwise escalate. So basically, once every 3 turns they don't do a roll, they will gain a colony. 2 out of 3 turns, they roll dice and steal dice, basically. So yeah, they steal dice. However, we can negotiate them during our turn. Twice per turn, you may make a purchase from the Horde. Spend 6 science for all energy, 4 fleets for all materials, 3 influence from locations for all diplomacy, 5 tech discs for all Ultratech dice, or dice of value 20 plus for all tech discs. Half rounded up, go to your pool. The rest of the supply dice are rolled first. So we don't really get them all back. They do return to the pool, or to the supply. Half of them we do get to roll and use for the turn. We can use that to try to get a powerful turn. Generally, the way that I tend to play Nebelwoobers is that the turn that they gain a colony is the turn that I tend to negotiate with them, since they're not doing as many rolls. And on the turns that you do negotiate and gain all the dice, you use that to try to confront the adversary, for instance, because you'll have more dice in the pool, so you will be more able to confront. Extra loss condition at the start of the adversary phase, you were overwhelmed if the Nebelwoobers have at least twice as many colonies as your Federation level, so you have to really focus on your Federation level. You will lose on turn 3, for instance, if you don't get a Federation level. And dice and tokens on the Horde are stored on the adversary and are not returned to the supply during the results phase, so it's permanent. And the event cards, all of them are bonus colonies, but some of them add extra things. Like this one has no extra thing other than the fact that it adds 1 of each die. The one that just adds 1 energy also reduces the starbase to its previous class, or moves 3 Ultratech dice from the supply to the Horde, or adds 1 of each thing to the Horde, or we have to do 2 of the following: exile a colony, exile a tech, exile 2 tech discs, or add an influence to the adversary. So yeah, can be pretty brutal. Sending envoys requires a lot of energy and diplomacy. We do have a lot of energy. Actually, would rather have more diplomacy, but blockade requires a lot of energy in fleets, which we do have a lot of energy. And we do need the fleets to start with for one of our Federation levels. And since this is campaign, we do have some bonus resources. We'll see if that's enough to get us somewhere. Yeah, so if I get to this, which is what I had wanted to do, we'll start with 1 bonus plant, 2 bonus waters, and our initial crystal. So if the starting discovery zone has 3 waters on them, then we immediately get a milestone, which is good. Yeah, so we'll see how that goes. Start with 4 science is pretty good. And their role, they take 1 materials and 1 diplomacy. Jump start. And we did not get any waters. We're currently at 3 plants, 2 waters, 2 crystals, and a fuel. We would need to have 3 of 3 resources to be able to get that level up. So yeah. Okay. So what can we do? We could deal with Terra Infirma immediately. We do have the 4 science for it, and our energy roll is pretty good. So it'll give us either a materials and a diplomacy, or roll a diplomacy and increase fruits of your dice by 2. So, or plants. I guess these are plants after all. So if I take this, I'll still be at 3 plants because it's not really taking it away. Increase 3 of my dice by 2 and roll a diplomacy. Pretty good. It does synergize with Probe Armada, for instance. Get Ultra Tech 5s. Or eventually 6s. Yeah, and since plant is one that we do have the highest number of, trying to keep those to get to 5 of 1 resource is pretty good. Fuel is one that we don't have a lot of, so if I were to study Ocean 1, it would replace it with a different thing that could give me a different resource. Studying it will force us to discard 3 cards, but I don't really like Ocean 1 anyway. So that's fine. Uplifters, pretty hard. We don't have the 6 science right now. Does require a lot of diplomacy and energy. Reverted Converter basically allows me to double up on attack. Or I just take 1 of each die, which is also fine, but we can't do that this turn. We still have Noble Efficiency because we're still the Felici. In case I wanted to like study soul, or to gain Soulwort faster or something. We do have our campaign ability to add 2 influence to a location. But I don't foresee why I would perhaps want to do that right away. We could also consider confronting, I guess, although we don't have the fleets for that. My diplomacy is bad. We do have these Ultra Techs, though. And we also have a little more over here, but this 5 is certainly hard. So if I were to focus on this, for instance... We do have Probe Armada to give me 2 more 3s. That would be 6 more, would probably be a 14, so I'd still need to do another Ultra Tech die to hit that. Which is doable. Confronting will make them harder to steal dice. But it does mean that, like, Terra Infirma might not be done. Okay, I guess I could, if I can get... Well, the 6 was going to go there for that, I guess. Unless I can somehow get this 5 differently. We could use our campaign ability to set 2 dice to any values. And that way it's trivial. We can turn this into a 5 or a 6. We can turn this into a 6, and then we just need a 5, which Probe Armada gives us. I guess that's reasonable. So we use that. turn that into that, turn that into that, and then return these dice. And with that, we have enough. So we can confront, we can get rid of Terra Infirma. And the plan was to study Ocean 1, I guess. In doing that, I'm losing a die. Can't really do anything with that die anyway. This costs 3 dice, this costs 3 dice. I could gain 3 fleets, which is something that I would eventually need to gain anyway. So yeah, these dice are just getting lost. Or one of these dice is getting lost, I guess. It is what it is. So I think we take Verdant Network, since it synergizes with Probe Armada. And we study Ocean 1 as we wanted. And we confronted. We still need to gain a Federation level pretty quickly, as they're going to gain a colony soon. Well, no, actually no, their first colony is not going to affect us, but this is the second colony that will, right? So I misspoke earlier when I said you lose on turn 3. That's not true. Okay, I thought that was a 5, but it's not. Unseen is here. We need a Federation level to confront a second time. We don't have the science for uplifters. We don't really have the diplomacy for the unseen, but we do have Probe Armada. Or not diplomacy, materials. Xfinity is back, by the way. This one's a little different than it was last time. Spend 2 fleets to gain 6s of each color. Interesting. Okay. So return 2 dice, gain Ultra Tech 3s, and then we can increase... Oh, we didn't get any plants. We can increase 3 of our dice by 2, so the 2 Ultra Techs and then something else, most likely. Unless I have some other thing to want to use. I guess we could take Unseen. Artisanal Ultra Tech does give us another Ultra Tech die, but I think we want the Tech Discs so that we can do more things. Because I can only do 2 things right now. I only have 3 techs outside of this campaign ability, but if I want to gain, say, Rainbow Projector for whatever reason, I would want to have more techs. Plus, Tech Discs can be spent for Ultra Tech dice if they steal them for whatever reason. Otherwise, I want to get plants. So it'd be nice to be able to get uplifters, but I don't think we're ever getting that. I could consider maybe getting it next turn if I get a good roll, then I can use Probe Armada and Verdant Network efficiently. That's the only other plant that's out there. Crystals would be Hexfinity and Soulwort. We're considering gaining Soulwort. Lattice Factory would be pretty nice. Because we will have a lot of crystals because we're using what's on the Discovery Zone for our own purposes. So, yeah, I think we're going to go with the Unseen. Return these 2. And then we roll here. And we're going to increase 3 dice by 2. Yeah, if I increase that one, then I can actually hit the 11. Oh. Actually, that's not what I wanted. Because I forgot I was increasing these 2. I was like, oh, if I increase this, then 5, 3, 3 is 11. But kind of wasted that then. I don't think it really matters because I don't think I'm using the dice for much else. I can gain an influence on Stalwart. We do want to gain the fleets to get to a milestone though. We do want to upgrade the starbase in case an event card levels us down. So I guess that's 2 fleets and a probe. Because I think we want to keep Stalwart. Kind of have to be strategic with whether you study a location or not, because we do want these crystals to count towards our resources, unless we want more plants, but yeah. I do have to get lucky and get high enough science if I do want to take uplifters, but if I don't get it, I'm not really terribly upset. All right, we're at 6 science, so I could do it. They are going to take... You've got mail, so they have an extra energy, materials, and tech disc every turn. That's kind of annoying. Got another plant. That's very good. We are going to lose uplifters if I can't gain it this turn, which this roll is currently not the best for. So let's see, the 22 on the energy. That needs 4 more. Diplomacy needs 10 more. Now, Probe Armada does give us Ultratechs, which could go towards this. Verdant Network gives us another Diplomacy die and increases 4 of my dice by 2. So, if I were to take these 2, Probe Armada them, and then Verdant Network to increase a bunch of my dice. Maybe I should leave this out in case I need to increase it. It might work. I think I'm doing it in any case. Kind of sucky to discard a 6, but I'm gonna go all in on this and see if it's good. The reason I pulled out one of those is in the event that I rolled a 6 or a 5 with that roll, because I wanted to make sure that I had enough. So does that work? We could spend fleets if needed. We don't need it. That gets us uplifters, which I think we're using for dice, which is pretty good. I guess we could use Reverted Converter to use Verdant Network twice, as that will give us a lot of pips. But a roll is on average 3.5. If I don't gain any more plants, this has increased my dice by 8. So basically I'm getting 11.5 pips out of this. If I roll the dice, then I'm getting 10.5 pips on average, but I'm not spending a tech disc for that. So I think it's fine to take the dice. Yeah. Okay. We're not really making any progress on any of the milestones, I guess. Maybe we're sort of getting progress on the resources. Oh, it was a bad roll. Okay. Well, speaking of that, we got 5 plants. Cool. So we do have that milestone, so we're fine right now. So at the start of the adversary phase, you're overwhelmed. The Nibu Woobers have at least twice as many colonies as your Federation level, so they need 4 colonies to make us lose. Okay, so now we have 5 of 1 resource, 4 of 2 resources. So we don't really need this plant anymore, although it does make Verdant Network stronger. Watergum Greenhouse is another one that increases dice. That's interesting. Ice Cream requires no identical dice. Okay. But we can use Noble Efficiency to gain influence twice, if we can do that. Which I guess it's possible. it's possible we could just gain this immediately. I mean, we don't need the plant, but the combination of Verdant Network and Watergum Greenhouse allows us to increase dice by 3, basically, and lots of them. So that's probably a very good setup. So let's get rid of those 2. And then see what this roll is. Increasing 5 of my dice by 2. So I want to hit 15. And I want to hit 15 once and the 2 5s twice. It is kind of difficult, I guess. Well, okay. I can use the Ultra Text to help with that as it's a different color. So do the 2 5s. I could do 6 5. And then 6 5, I guess. I don't think I want to increase those 2 as they'll be very identical. I could increase that one. If I increase those 4, do I have enough to hit 15 with also 2 5s going on? So 15 could be 6 5 4, but then I will not have the 2 5s. Yeah, it's a bit tricky. I guess we can use a fleet to calibrate. The 2's not going to do much even for the 15, as I would still have to have 13, which would require 3 dice anyway. So I guess increasing this is better, unless I want to use dice somewhere else. We don't need Gurn, I guess, unless we want more plants. But we do want to try to keep the crystals going on, so we want to gain Hexfinity or Soulwort if possible. I guess there's also a consideration that we can try to deal with the adversary. But it's a pretty good opportunity to take Ice Cream right now. So let's start there. And then let's double check what's going on the other side. We don't have enough fleets for that, and I would need Diplomacy, which I'm currently thin on. So I can't put that in. I can't calibrate it to a 5. I can calibrate this to a 6, though. And then put that in. And then I can resolve both of those rows. And then if I calibrate this to a 5, that gives us that. And then we get Ice Cream in 1 turn. That's pretty nice. So what else can I do? We probably should start working towards the 12 fleets. We could study Gurn to replace it. Although it is powering up Verdant Network and Watergum Greenhouse, but we also need to eventually level up the starbase to be safe. We don't have a lot of the same numbers here. 2 3s, 2 4s, 2 5s. That's kind of annoying. So I guess I'm going to gain 2 fleets since I can't really gain 3, and then I can study Gurn and do a probe. Yeah. Taking Watergum. Study. Probe. Not a lot of science there. They take a materials. And we did get 3 of 3 resources? Cool. So we just need to up the water or crystal by 1, and we'll have that other milestone done. It's funny how the Explorers is the society where you tend to accidentally get the milestones. Kind of. I mean, we're strategically leaving like Soulwort and Hexfinity here, not because we want them, but because we want the crystals, really. So Probe Armada's leveled up. We can get Ultratech 4s that way. And that's also an Ultra Tech. We do have to be mindful of what's in the supply. Maple Ubers currently have 1 energy, 4 materials, and 2 diplomacy. And 2 tech discs. We're not running out of materials just yet, though, so we're fine there. We don't have the fleets for that. This would be a good turn to confront, I guess. Confronting will make it harder for them to take dice, so that's fine. We have 5 plants. Okay, so let's return those 3. Then let's roll the Ultra Tech first. And then just up the lowest numbers. I don't actually have too many low numbers. It's weird. Why is it saying 0 dice? Why is it saying 0 dice right now? That seems like a bug. It's not doing it in the same way that Verdant Network is doing it. It should just up this number. But it's not. So. That's a bug. It is unfortunate, but at least it's only increasing by 1 and not 2, and my roll right now is pretty good that it doesn't really matter. It's still sucky. So now we'll do this roll. Yeah, because this does increase the count. Increase those. So, pretty sure confronting is pretty easy. Okay. Is confronting going to be easy? Seems like it. I think I'm not really that worried about anything else. I just need to get the last milestones. So I guess we are close to a reshuffle, so gaining fleets right now is probably a bad idea, but we'll do that and then study Rice Twin and then level up the Starbase. So this is going to be 2 dice. So yeah, it's not, or 2 cards, so it's not going to trigger a reshuffle just yet. That's fine. But emptying out my science before the reshuffle is a pretty good idea. Keeps the discard thick, although we're already winning, so doesn't really super matter. They take Chelonis for an extra material and tech disc every turn. And now there's 0 cards in the deck, so we can't gain fleets without doing the reshuffle anyway, so it is what it is. And this still does not work. So Watergum Greenhouse is currently just rolling Ultra Tech die. Which honestly That isn't even that bad. Honestly, there are worse techs. Alright, we don't actually have enough for the 28. We could spend fleets to make up the difference, or we can just get an Ultra Tech this way. Actually, could we spend stuff to get there? No. Because I want to keep the fleets. So let's get Ultra Techs. And then we just need 2 fleets. And I don't think it really matters. Can't really see what the event deck has. I don't think there was one that said spend science for. There's like the reason we upgraded our starbase was because we needed to get, because if we didn't and it was a downgraded starbase event card, then it was going to cause a discard of 5 cards or something, which is bad. There's one that says take 3 Ultra Tech dice, put them in the horde. There's one that says take 1 energy, 1 material, 1 diplomacy, 1 tech disc and put it in the horde. There's one that just adds it directly as a colony. And then there's one that says you have to either exile a colony, exile 2 tech discs, add 2 influence to the adversary, or a 4th thing that I don't remember. Yeah. Well, let's study Vo, as the fuel's not helping us, but if I get a replacement water or crystal, we do get the last milestone, even though we're also getting 12 there, but hey. Aha! We must do 2 of the following. Let's also only exile 1, or add 1 influence. Exile a colony, exile a tech, exile 2 starbase discs, add an influence to the adversary. Well, we're not leveling up the starbase. We don't need those, so we can actually do that freely. Adding an influence to the adversary just means they gain a colony faster, whereas exiling a colony or tech, I mean, we have to choose between these 2, which Watergun Greenhouse isn't doing its stated effect anyway. But I think we're winning, so I'm just going to add the influence. We do have to be mindful about tech discs. They're going to take 4, but we should still have enough, right? Yeah, we have 4. They take an energy. And we got the last milestone, so Probe Armada is the strongest it can be. Cool. So returning 4 dice and gaining 6s. We don't even have to increase them anymore. So like literally just those right there. So we got another 6 that way. Increase dice to no effect. And then increase dice for some reason. And then get more 6s. And then beat the hell out of the Nebelwoobers. Okay. Engage. Shrubkin. Outstanding. You've stayed 1 step ahead of the Nebelwoober colony fleet, building a successful federation. And we're done. Yeah, there's no continuation to this campaign, and we're at Shrubkin, which is 82. Which, yeah. So There's something in here about what the rankings mean. Yeah, Shrubkin is 70 plus. We had 82, right? So we were 3 short of Strong Bark. But yeah, my trophy was the Shrubkin one, which was that one. Legend Tree would require a score of 100 plus. Now, the scoring... Winning is 2 points per star on the adversary plus 10 points for winning. And if you win all 6 games in the campaign, that's definitely 60 points. Each adversary also has 1 star on it. So technically it's like 72 points you're guaranteed at a minimum. So I was guaranteed Shrubkin, I guess. Now, let's see, 100 plus. So what would we need mathematically? We would need 40 across 6 games. So that's an average of about 6.67. So you need to have 3, like mostly 4-star adversaries in order to, on average, in order to get Legend Tree. So let's, I already saw that. Can we skip that? The answer is no. Okay. Cool. That plays again if you go there. But what are the 4-star adversaries? Obviously, at base level, we don't really have anything hard other than Preservation Authority. But if you can turn on hard mode, then we have 5s and 4s everywhere, except Hungry Nebula, which is 3. So yeah, getting Legend Tree basically means play on hard mode. Although I think you can toggle this during your campaign anyway, so you can pick and choose the adversaries that you want to play on hard mode. You might think, oh, I need to high roll it so that like I'm not getting all Neebawoobers for the check marks, but you actually don't have to pursue check marks in the campaign. You can keep playing the same game over and over again. It will not make any check marks, but you will not make any check marks other than maybe the first game, but you will get points anyway. So yeah, that is campaign mode. Finished this across 3 streams. Pretty fun. I think that with how I've been playing this game, since I'm already winning most of the games anyway, campaign mode's not really doing much for me other than making the game easier in a sense, which that's kind of by design in a sense. Because you get the jumpstart nodes and the ability nodes, which makes your turn 1 better. You also get some passive ability nodes that give these things, which... Is there anything other than... Oh yeah, this one has a probe cost -1 available during the entire game. That's all resources. Wide boxes -2. That's really strong. Another wide -2. Most of these are resources, but there is occasionally an extra one. I'm not really looking at what the campaign abilities are right now, but yeah, probe -1, probe -1, wide boxes -2. Remove an influence from an encounter. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so, oh, calibrate is now ±2 per fleet. That's a cool one. Yeah, so the campaign abilities being one-offs means you have to choose strategically when you want to use them, but permanent effects obviously make the entire game easier. And in this case, if you set this up right after the 4th game, calibrating is stronger and wide boxes are easier, which means that you should be able to, you know, really pound down the games. But, I mean... The same is true of One Deck Dungeon in a sense that has like a campaign sheet as well. I guess this is a campaign sheet, but this is just like a 6-game campaign. Whereas in One Deck Dungeon, you know, you're basically taking one hero and leveling them up in a sense with like check marks based on the difficulty of the encounter. And that does make the game easier as you'll have extra abilities and stuff that you can use or extra passive effects that, you know, go on across the entire game, or extra starting potions, etc. So like if you're used to playing One Deck Dungeon without progression mode active, then playing with progression mode is by default easier. But this could be a good introduction to the game if you're struggling, as, you know, you get these bonuses on the first game immediately, so you could choose, I want to start with an extra diplomacy die and crystals, for instance. Or start with an Ultra Tech die on turn 1. Which can help you get set up and will make the game easier, especially if you're struggling to win the game. It also can allow you to go into hard mode, which I have yet to actually do. Most of the hard mode changes are centered around these numbers changing, plus the fact that when you spend time, you spend 2 time instead of just 1. But there's also some extra rules, such as Hungry Nebula discards 10 extra cards at the start of the game. Nebelwoobers actually also start gaining tech discs right away. Optimization Calibrator starts with an influence. Dark Star Syndicate puts a random event into play immediately. And Preservation Authority doesn't have anything, I guess, but they're apparently really hard anyway, so they don't need anything. So yeah. Yeah, that's it for this stream, by the way. Since we finished campaign mode, I think that's good. We did 2 wins. One Deck Galaxy is still in early access on Steam, but you see that all of the adversaries are in and campaign mode is in. So surely the rest of what Handelabra needs to do is just UI improvements, gameplay improvements, whatnot. So feel free to join the early access and provide that feedback. It will be invaluable to Handelabra. Check out the other streams we have on this channel, mainly Handelabra Live every Tuesday at 3 p.m. They were off this week, but should return next week. A lot of Spirit Island content being demoed because Spirit Island is experiencing a lot of Jagged Earth expansion stuff being released piecemeal. Recently, they added on Many Minds Move as One, as well as Russia Adversary. So if you're a fan of that Spirit and that Adversary, you can purchase Jagged Earth at a discounted rate to pick up on that, as well as the future releases. Next up are Aspects, as well as another Spirit, but I forget who it is. Finder of Paths Unseen, maybe? No, I don't think it's... That one's not in Jagged Earth, right? I don't think it is. I don't remember. I have not actually played physical Jagged Earth outside of maybe one time. But look forward to that content being demoed on Handelabra Live. I also play it sometimes on my own stream, but Handelabra Live is the go-to for things that have not been seen publicly before. Other than that, you know, Handelabra products are great. They are great digital implementations of physical board games. They allow you to play games without having to do a lot of tracking or physical upkeep, which is nice. So yeah. Check out handelabra.com for news, information on the games, prices, sales announcements, etc. Follow me at twitch.tv/LogicDolphin if you like me. Please like me. Anyway, my streams are a random day of the week, and next week is probably going to be Wednesday night if I were to guess. I have my schedule. I'm looking at it. It looks like Wednesday night's probably the better day. I could also do Monday night, I guess, but Wednesday night seems better. So Wednesday, 7 p.m., May the 29th. You can look forward to that. But that's it for this week. See you guys next week. Bye.